Shalaknai, Jutrangwinzi, Shoji Evon Peter Oji, Vashank Ogatsanithli, Netzaiguch Nights are Quakanithli, Zagishi and Jitchoithli. Hate O Greenland, Nick Kuchinai, the Tuck. I want to thank Premier Kilson and President Grimson for the invitation to share a few words here. If you were trying to listen to that through translation, it probably didn't work. That was, I wanted to share with you a little bit of the Gwich'in language, the language that I grew up with in my community. I want to thank you for inviting me here to share a few words on the empowerment of Indigenous peoples of the Arctic. Before I begin, I want to also thank the people of this land for hosting us here. My name is Evon Peter. I'm Gwich'in, and I come from a village called Vashank-O in northern Alaska in the Brooks Mountain Range. In English, they call my village Arctic Village, in case you decide to Google Earth where I'm from. It's a small village of about 135 people in the Brooks Range, as I mentioned. It's over 200 miles from the nearest city and only accessible by small plane. To this day, in my village, there's still no piped running water, although we did get electricity when I was a small child. If I had more time, I'd tell you the story of my first encounter with electricity, but I don't have time, but I could assure you it was a very empowering experience. Some people say that's why I'm the way I am today. Our people live from the land with minimal employment opportunities. It's not an easy life there, but it's a fulfilling life. We love our way of life, and we love the land from which we come. Today, I live in the city of Fairbanks, 230 miles south of Vashank-O. I moved there 12 years ago to pursue my graduate education. Prior to this move, I was serving as the tribal chief for my people. It is from these perspectives of a community leader and a pathway through education that I will share with you this afternoon. I'm also a storyteller, so through my story, I'll share my insights with you. My mother moved us from the village to Fairbanks when I was becoming a teenager because she wanted me to receive a stronger school-based education. But like many of our Native men in Alaska, I became a high school dropout. Few people had hoped that I would do anything with my life. But as I came to terms with the circumstances I witnessed our people facing around me, I chose to turn things around and pursue higher education. I saw this as a path that would help people choose to listen to what I had to say and perhaps even value my insights and opinion. Once I got there, I discovered how much I had to learn and realized the transformative value of higher education. From my youngest years, I can remember I was influenced by many mentors. Among them was Chief Peter John of the Minto people, who passed away at 102 years of age in the early 2000s. He only worked 3 months in a Western job in his entire life. He spoke to the role of higher education, though, in a speech in 1994 at the university. He foresaw that through education, our people would garner the tools to revitalize our languages, cultures, and identities. That education would provide us with the capacity to navigate and adapt to a rapidly changing world we found ourselves facing. As a high school dropout, of course, I was not initially accepted into the institution. But then there was a native Polynesian who happened to be an acceptance officer at the university. He offered to give me a chance by waiving the acceptance rules if I would commit to give it my all. Once in the system, I was picked up by the Comprehensive Native Student Advising Center. They held my hand through filling forms, scholarship applications, counseled me when I was frustrated with Western academics. That happened a lot. Guided me in course and faculty selection, and provided a space for us to gather and practice our cultures as Alaska Native students. This level of comprehensive student advising is critical to degree completion for many of our Alaska Native and Indigenous students. Since completing my first degree in the 1990s, I've been blessed to serve in a multitude of capacities at the village, regional, state, national, and international levels. They span work as an education administrator, tribal chief, renewable energy manager for a microgrid utility, a private business owner, and culturally based behavioral health practitioner, utilizing Indigenous knowledge and practices to address the issue of suicide among our youth. In addition to my current position at the university, I also serve as a board member to the Gwich'in Council International, which represents us within the Arctic Council Forum. In working with our communities and people, I embrace work through two overarching themes that are interconnected: healing and self-determination. In academic arenas, these themes are fundamental to a process referred to as decolonization. On a basic level, this is a process of becoming a healthy, balanced human being, in our case, rooted in Indigenous culture and identity, and having self-determination in political and economic systems that impact our people's livelihoods and future. In my own journey, this included learning about the 7 years that my mother was sent away to be assimilated into mainstream society, and learning about the associated traumas and separation she experienced afterwards. And myself going through a healing process and forgiveness for my own mother, understanding the circumstances that she had to face during that time of rapid transition culturally for our people. It included learning about being disenfranchised for the first 100+ years of Western colonization in the Arctic and the decades of work from leaders before me for us to attain basic rights to citizenship and to our right to our ways of life. I appreciate the acknowledgement of a few of the elders that were here in this room that were a part of the formation of ICC. They're among those who I hold a high regard for because of the work they did laying the foundation for us to be here today. But this work is not done. Given the new elevated focus on the Arctic and the opportunities and challenges that now present themselves, it is a critical time to ensure that Indigenous peoples have representation and voice with equal footing at the economic development and decision-making tables. This is not only for the benefit of Indigenous peoples, but it is of mutual global benefit. Within humanity broadly, we are in need of fundamental shifts towards long-term and sustainable economic models that take into account a value-based and holistic perspective relative to a broad nexus of interrelated dimensions, such as food, energy, water, infrastructure, health, and economy. The cultural values and epistemologies embedded in Indigenous knowledge systems are fundamentally holistic and multi-generational in nature. I foresee that Indigenous knowledge and wisdom will need to help guide how development happens if we intend it to be sustainable for future generations. We live in the Arctic and intend to stay in the Arctic, so we have an incredibly vested interest in the outcomes of any development that may occur. On a practical level, what does this mean? Since my remarks are focusing on the theme of education, I will elaborate in this area. There is no one size-fits-all solution, because in the Arctic we are working in many different systems and circumstances, so I will share from my own experience. Our people are often torn between practicing a culturally based subsistence lifestyle connected to family, land, and community, or post-secondary education. The coursework and programs are not always relevant to the challenges or opportunities faced at the community level, and they rarely reflect Indigenous knowledge and pedagogy. At the University of Alaska, we develop programs that allow students to stay in their village, continue to practice subsistence lifestyles, continue to work and provide for their families while attaining bachelor's, master's, and PhD degrees in the field of Indigenous studies. These programs are designed to provide training, studies, and research in areas relevant to the challenges and opportunities faced by our people and communities. Systemically, the University of Alaska Fairbanks created my position as Vice Chancellor to help champion Indigenous and Alaska Native studies and student support programs. We emphasize both academic and workforce development in the trades and access across Alaska. I manage 6 campuses, serving 160 communities, covering 2/3 of the state of Alaska. We place a high value on Indigenous knowledge and in Indigenous leadership. In our training and academic programs, as well as our public service, we foster and support Indigenous self-determination and self-governance. We see this as a long-term benefit for all peoples of the North. The university is not perfect in these areas, but we have made a long-term commitment, and I believe we are on the right path. At this time, our Indigenous Studies PhD program has such a high demand that we can no longer accept all the prospective students trying to get in. And this August, we're bringing on board 3 new Alaska Native professors to our faculty. In conclusion, we empower Indigenous peoples through taking action, through making real and long-term investments in the development of Indigenous peoples and communities. We do this because we understand the tremendous value Indigenous peoples bring to the decision-making tables and the global community. In the education sector, I encourage substantial investment to support Indigenous peoples in post-secondary education and workforce development. Solid financial backing and comprehensive student advising are two keys to success in this area. Let us work together to demonstrate a sustainable future grounded in deep mutual respect and wisdom. It's a privilege and honor to be here with you all, to be a part of these conversations, and I look forward to what comes from these. Thank you very much. Masicho.